How's it going, guys? So in this video, I'll be going over how to make your poses more dynamic, and I'm sure you've already heard about things like gesture and exaggeration, and I'm sure you've already tried implementing that stuff and it probably didn't work. So I'm going to go over some topics that you may not have heard before, and they might actually help you make more dynamic poses. But first, this video is sponsored by Huion. They provided me with their Huion Kamvas Pro 16 for review purposes. They currently have a Black Friday promotion which runs until the end of the month, so if you've been looking to invest in a drawing tablet, I've got some links to this tablet in the description that I suggest you check out. So here we have the Kamvas Pro 16, the 2.5K version, because they actually have multiple different versions of this. There's even a 4K one. And I actually used to use a Kamvas 22 Plus up until a little while ago. I used it for a couple years, so I'm pretty familiar with how these Kamvas tablets work and how they feel, and I'm actually a pretty big fan of how they feel, because I don't know if it's the screen or the pen or the ring, but when you're drawing, it feels like you have a lot of grip, so you have a lot of control, and then when you're painting, you can actually like very smoothly slide over the surface, so it's super easy to blend colors. But yeah, this tablet actually comes with a stand, and you can adjust it to be at different heights. I think it goes all the way up to 45 degrees. But that's pretty nice. The box is also really clean too. Like, there's not much extra stuff in there, which you'll see in a second too with the wires. A lot of the other tablets come with a bunch of wires, like 4 sets of wires or something. Whereas with the Kamvas, the wires are like all built into one wire, so it doesn't. You can keep things very clean. Speaking of clean, of course we got a cleaning cloth. But here's the pen holder, and the cool thing about the pen holder is that you can twist it to open it, and then you have the extra nibs in there as well. Those white nibs are felt nibs, which have they have kind of a rougher surface, meaning that when you're using them to draw, you have more grip, or there's more friction, so you actually have more control, or it feels more like you're using a pencil, I guess. Here we've got the wires, and what's really cool about the wires is they actually color code which wires are supposed to be used for the power, and they just make those red, which is pretty helpful when you're dealing with this long wire. This is the one that has like all the cables built in, the USB-Cs that are supposed to go into the tablet, and then you've got the HDMI and the 2 USB-As, one of which is supposed to go into the power, and the other one is supposed to go into the PC. But yeah, it's a nice quality of life, I guess. Hey, yo! So you can use this tablet with phones as well, where you get all of the USB-Cs required to do that, which is pretty nice too. And here we have the pen, which is just like any other stylus that you've seen. Doesn't come with an eraser or a scroll wheel or anything like that. Just a regular pen, nice to hold, I guess, not too heavy. They also sent me a second stylus, and in this case it's the slim stylus, which is very nice. If you've been watching some of my previous videos, you know how much I like the slim stylus. That thing is, I would highly recommend getting one of those if you don't already have it, because it's super light, meaning you can move it around just like a regular pencil. I'm not a very big fan of the slim stylus when you're trying to paint stuff or color, but for just regular drawing purposes, I think it's great. This one also comes with the felt nib like built into it, so you got even more friction there, meaning it's you got even more control. And also comes with a bunch of additional nibs that you can use. This is a separate purchase, by the way, the slim stylus, but yeah, like I said, I would highly recommend picking it up if you got a Kamvas. And here we have the actual tablet. Screen is, of course, 16 inches across, 2.5K resolution, and this one has a bunch of buttons on the side, which I usually don't use those buttons because I'm more used to using keyboard shortcuts, but they are there if you're somebody who uses them. And what's interesting about these buttons is I think they all make different sounds too. They also have like different symbols on them. But they all make different sounds, so you can tell which one you're pressing purely based on sound. It's pretty light too, and doesn't take up that much space either. Like you can see, compared to a human skull, it's not that big. And that's it for the unboxing. So like I said at the start of the video, when it comes to dynamic poses, people always talk about exaggeration and gesture, But what they don't talk about is that those things only make poses look more dynamic if the pose already makes logical sense. For a pose to make logical sense, it has to follow all the rules first, like the anatomy has to make sense. For example, you can't raise the arm and then not make the collarbone move. That doesn't make sense according to how joints work. Or if you want the upper body to rotate and you don't think about where the body transitions from the front to the side plane. In that case, your perspective is going to be off, and no matter how you exaggerate the pose, that won't fix the perspective. Now, the first topic I want to go over is the center of gravity. The center of gravity determines if the body stays balanced when it's holding a certain pose. You should be familiar with the center of gravity if you've ever tried to balance a pencil on your finger. The point where the distribution of weight is equal on both sides is where the center of gravity is. And to make sure that it stays balanced, you also need something called the base of support. Now, the base of support is the area made up of every point of contact between the object and the supporting surface. So in the case of balancing a pencil on your finger, the base of support is the point where the pencil contacts your finger. If a person is standing up, the base of support is the area between the feet. As long as the person's center of gravity falls somewhere in this base, it'll be balanced. And here's what it looks like if that doesn't happen. The center of gravity and base of support are important to make balanced poses. So how do you actually find the center of gravity? I think the most intuitive way is to look at how mass is distributed across the body. The head contains around 10% of the body's mass, the torso around 50%, each arm has 5%, meaning 10% in total, and then each leg is 15%, meaning 30% in total. Going off of this mass distribution, the center of gravity is around the level of the belly button. If someone has a big upper body, it'll be higher, and if their lower body is bigger, it'll be lower. The center of gravity is also affected by how body parts move. If you raise your arms above your head, the center of gravity will move up a little. To practice finding the center of gravity, I'd recommend looking at different poses and then thinking about how the mass is distributed. And then by thinking about where the mass on both sides of the body is 50%, you can roughly estimate the position of the center of gravity. And then thinking about that will make your poses more balanced, and once you have that balance, you can start exaggerating. Another thing that's important for deciding the logic of a pose is thinking about what the torso is doing. Now, as we've seen, the torso is 50% of the body's mass, so it massively influences where the center of gravity is. And because of that, it also affects where the base needs to be, and thus it affects where the arms or legs need to be. Now, the torso is made up of 3 parts: the ribcage, pelvis, and both of these are moved by the spine. The ribcage and pelvis can move separately from one another. You can twist the upper body without moving the hips and vice versa. Now, when it comes to poses, the torso has to move in a very specific way to make the pose possible. If you squat down, for example, you're not going to squat with the torso in its neutral position. You have to bend forward a little bit. And that's how it is with every movement. Those movements are only possible if the torso moves in a very specific way. So if you draw a pose and the torso is not positioned how it should be to make the pose make sense, the pose isn't going to look good, and then when you exaggerate it, all you'll be doing is exaggerating the mistake. If you want to get better at drawing the torso, the first thing I'd recommend you do is find some reference poses. Or you can also find some videos of people moving around. And then the exercise will be to look at what the chest is doing, look at what the hips are doing, and then think about how the spine has to move to connect those 2 areas. As an example, remember that if somebody's standing up and they put most of their weight on one leg, it means that the hip on the opposite side is going to go down. So there's going to be a diagonal angle on the hips. What's important to keep in mind when you're studying these poses is where the front, side, and back planes are at all times, because those tell you the orientation of the torso in 3D space. Let's give it a try now. We're going to draw an actual pose, and I've got a pose reference, which I highly recommend you use references as well, because if you try to do this without a reference and you don't really have any pose drawing experience, it's going to go really wrong. So yeah, definitely use one. There are 3 things we need to do, I think, if we want to draw this pose. The first thing is find the horizon line. which I didn't talk about the horizon line in this video. I have talked about it in other videos before, but the horizon line is essentially the line that all of the vanishing points sit on. So if we follow all of these lines back, they reach a vanishing point, and that would be the horizon line. Now you can place the horizon line wherever you want, and depending on where you place it, it affects how the image is going to look. So for example, if you want to draw a low angle view, you place the horizon line low, and then everything above the horizon line will be seen from below. For this, we're going to keep it simple, place it in the middle of the page, just like how it is with the original pose, and then maybe for the thumbnail I'll do something a bit more interesting, we'll see. But yeah, horizon line's in place. And then from here, we need to think about center of gravity and torso. The center of gravity in this pose, I imagine, would be slightly higher than the belly button because the arms are above her head. And then I would imagine it's also a bit more in the back because the upper body is tilting backwards, arms are above the head, this leg is going backwards. So yeah, I imagine it's like maybe right around there. And then if we follow it down, hits the base of support, which in this case is created by both of the legs touching the ground. Then if we look at the torso, the hips are angled downwards and the rib cage is angled upwards, or I should say it's curving upwards, whereas the pelvis is curving downwards. And then the spine has to curve to connect both of these. So if we want to exaggerate the pose, those are the things we need to pay attention to. Center of gravity is going to be around the back, meaning the legs would have to be in the position they're in this image, or if we decide to bring them in, we have to make sure that they're around that point. They can't both be over here or both be over there. That's not going to work. And we have to make sure that the upper torso curves backwards and the lower torso curves downwards. That's pretty much all we need, and then from there we can just draw it however we want. For example, we could extend one of the arms upwards to hold it there, and then the other one can go downwards, which I think that is what I'm going to try. I'm going to start with the head, which I will place up here. I kind of want her to look down at us, so I'm going to draw it like that. This pen feels really good to draw with, by the way. It has the felt nib, which gives you some more friction when you're drawing, so you've got a bit more control. Then from here, need to place the neck, which is always pretty annoying. In this case, because her head is tilted this way, the neck has to go backwards, but with how I'm tilting it, I think it would be better if I actually tilt the head a bit more. So then the neck will have to extend that way to connect to the torso. So we'll do this. Draw the curve down. Have to make sure that the center of gravity is right around here. And I think what I'm going to do is rotate the upper body and lower body a bit, because here we're seeing things kind of from the side, and then the front plane would be over here. I think what I want to do is rotate it a bit so we can see more of the front plane. So we're following that. Then from here, angle of the shoulders, and then we'll do angle of the hips. Now to draw the rib cage, like I said, we're seeing it a bit more from the front. So the side plane is over here, and then everything over here would be the front plane. And then same thing with the hips. Going to see it a bit more from the front. And I think I kind of... I think I kind of want to tilt it a bit more down. Now from here, I'm going to draw one of the legs going down like this. I'm kind of changing the pose a lot, but you know, that's just what I want to do. Because it's just a reference, you don't have to perfectly follow it. I'm also not doing a perfect study of it, so it wouldn't really make sense to follow it. And I'm trying to make it look as dynamic as possible, I guess. So then from here, I think I'll draw the pole first, which is going to go down like that. And then a trick for drawing arms and hands, by the way, is to place the shoulder first, then place where you want the hand, and then you draw the arm connecting them. Because if you were to draw the arm first, there's a good chance that the hand doesn't end up where it's supposed to, and in that case, you're going to have to change a lot of other stuff. So start by drawing the shoulder, hands, and then just connect them. And then lastly, the other arm could basically do whatever we want. I think I'm going to have it rest upon it like that. And then that's basically it. I just have to work it out a bit more. And here's the more refined sketch. But yeah, that's basically all I think there is to it. You have to think about what the torso is doing and what it has to do to make the pose make sense in the first place. Because in this case, she's lifting her arms above her head and kind of holding the weapon, you know, ready to strike. For that to be possible, the torso has to be curved this way. Because if she were to, you know, hunch over and do the same thing, it wouldn't convey the same emotion. I redrew the pose and went with a low angle this time, so it's the same pose, just from a different perspective. The horizon line is really low on screen now, instead of it being like halfway through the page as it was previously. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about the tablet right now. You know, I've been using it throughout the video, and if you're looking for a tablet to buy, I think the Kamvas 16 is a pretty good one to get. 16 inches is like the perfect size for a hobbyist tablet, and like I said, I've been using a Kamvas myself for a couple years, so I know how good these things are. They have a Black Friday sale going on right now, so if you're interested, I'd suggest checking out the links in the description. But that does it for the video, so hopefully that was helpful, and if you guys would like to support the channel, you can do so through Patreon or YouTube members, which are both linked in the description. And if you want, you can also join our Discord server, which is also in the description. But yeah, I guess I'll catch you all in the next video.